Sunday evening. These are the best. These are where we get to unwind, talk some 49ers, address the latest rumor, which we've already talked about quite a bit, but I haven't sat down and dedicated a whole spiel to it, a whole show. So get your questions ready. We're going to talk about the Trey Lance rumors. We're going to talk about what's the title here? 49ers Trey Lance trade rumors. We're going to apply rational thoughts to them. And the first rational thought, this is don't get stuck in the weeds. The first rational thought is that the 49ers need quarterbacks, perhaps worse than any team in NFL history, if you look at it in the contextual way. It's April 2nd right now, so just over 2 months ago, the 49ers were eliminated from the NFC Championship game because they literally ran out of quarterbacks. They didn't have a healthy QB to end the biggest game of the season, one of the biggest games on the NFL schedule, second to only the Super Bowl. So after that happened, the 49ers lost the top quarterback on their roster in Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're dealing with two injuries that to this day have the next two quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, unavailable if there were a game today. So just, let that all marinate. The 49ers literally ran into complete injury catastrophe when they ran out of quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game, and they still have two guys on their depth chart. They've since added one in Sam Darnold who aren't ready if there were a game today. So the 49ers are just in a position where they have to add quarterbacks. They cannot afford to subtract them. So any discussion of potentially trading Trey Lance absolutely has to be framed by that one simple truth that people seem to often forget. This is a team that must be in the positive column, not in the negative column, as far as QB transactions. Now, if they do decide to move Trey Lance, as some people think they should be doing, the 49ers would have to make sure they get something in that QB room in return. It couldn't just be draft picks. It couldn't just be a linebacker or safety or some other position coming in return for Trey Lance. If you were going to subtract from the depth numbers of the quarterback room, if you're the 49ers, you would have to add. In fact, even if you don't subtract, right, even if you keep it at the status quo, which I think we can all agree is the most likely scenario, having Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold, even if you do not subtract right now, you're probably still going to want to add in the draft. Kyle Shanahan, and I don't know if it was Shanahan or Lynch. I think it was Lynch about a week ago. It was on Monday in Arizona, said, it was Shanahan. It was Shanahan on Tuesday, said that this draft is one in which the 49ers are either going to have to pick somebody or add an undrafted guy to their rooms. They have 4 to go through this offseason. And that's all rooted in the truth of the moment, which is the 49ers absolutely need quarterbacks. You don't go from January 29th, people lamenting the 49ers literally running out of quarterbacks, which has hardly ever happened before in NFL history, especially at that stage. It hadn't happened. You don't go from running dry of quarterbacks to saying, willy-nilly, we can just trade one. We can just be fine with jettisoning a quarterback. So that is the underlying truth of the matter when we want to contextualize any potential Trey Lance discussion. Now, this is where I think the Trey Lance trade rumors come from. It is the world of quarterback hot potato that especially Twitter likes to play. But I guess YouTube will like to play it as well because it's going to generate attention. It's going to get clicks. But people see a quarterback, they see just one flaw. It could be one of the best quarterbacks ever, but just one flaw comes out, and there's going to be some level of trade rumors. There's going to be some level of, let's get rid of this guy, let's move on to the next. With quarterbacks, unless they are in the absolute honeymoon phase of their relationship with a team, and that is right after being drafted or right after being traded for, shortly after the acquisition. So 2017, the 5 games of Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance could do no wrong, right? According to a lot of people in training camp of 2021. If a quarterback's in that honeymoon phase, people aren't going to be talking about trades. But as soon as the quarterback inevitably leaves the honeymoon phase, people will be talking about trades. They're going to treat him like a hot potato. Can't touch this for too long. Got to toss it away. There's going to be a certain subset of the media, a certain subset of fan bases are going to talk about that. And Trey Lance, of course, I think has worn out the welcome of the honeymoon phase. And this is with the 49ers, too. The 49ers had a scholarship for him. Tim Kawakami used the word scholarship. That this was the best word, the best way to describe it. They had one for him in the 2022 season. The plan for Trey Lance all along when the 49ers picked him in 2021 was to keep Jimmy Garoppolo for that season. Jimmy was going to start 2021. Trey was going to learn behind him. And then 2022 was going to be Trey's year. And you saw it develop like that. Even though Jimmy Garoppolo remained on the roster, that was an unforeseen benefit for the 49ers. So they kept him on as a backup. But Trey was handed the job in 2022. He didn't have to earn it, right? He earned it by fact that he had earned being the number 3 overall pick in 2021. When the 49ers had invested so much in Lance in 2021, it was essentially preordained that he would get one free swing, at least one free swing at a starting quarterback job. And that was supposed to come in 2022. It wasn't supposed to happen in 2021. I understand that there may be some confusion about this because a lot of people automatically thought when he was drafted that he was going to step in and become the starter, that he would easily beat Jimmy Garoppolo. That was all fantasy. That was never going to happen. Garoppolo was going to be the starter in 2021, and Lance was going to be the starter in 2022. The fact that Trey Lance got hurt in his free swing year, the year where he was gifted the job because of draft status, that's changed the dynamic. That ended the honeymoon phase for Trey Lance. Free shot at it in 2022. Anything moving forward, we knew the moment that he was hurt in week 2, he was going to have to earn straight up in the National Football League. And that's what we've seen develop over the course of the past couple months. Obviously, Brock Purdy hurt in the NFC title game, torn UCL, supposedly on schedule. We'll wait to see when exactly he returns. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have already said that Purdy is, in their estimation, ahead of Lance on the depth chart, as he should be. Brock Purdy has played much better football than Trey Lance ever has at the NFL level. So Purdy has officially been, pronounced to be ahead of Lance in the pecking order. That can still change, though. But for now, Purdy has the endorsement of both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. On top of that, the 49ers have signed Sam Darnold, who, like Trey Lance, is a former number 3 pick, who also has a great skill set physically, right? Who also is going to be thrown right into this mix of competition, who isn't being treated as somebody who's under Trey Lance on the depth chart. The burden of proof is on Trey Lance now. The burden of proof wasn't on Trey Lance in 2022. He was going to get a chance to start regardless. The 49ers needed to see what they had in that number 3 overall pick. But life in the NFL moves really fast. And it's now moved past Trey Lance, and he's got to play catch up. He's going to have to blow the 49ers away this offseason. And first, he's going to be battling against Sam Darnold, and then presumably against Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy has already showcased on an actual stage throughout 8 games of the regular season, and even on the playoff stage against the Seahawks and then against the Cowboys, he has shown that he can get the job done. Can he sustain that? Probably another question, especially after the elbow injury. So that's why everybody's just sitting around right now and saying that uncertainty is what's going on in the 49ers quarterback room. The favorite, the leader in the clubhouse, as John Lynch said, is recovering from elbow surgery. The other 2 guys, former number 3 picks, have a lot of bad tape on their resume. I guess Trey Lance has bad tape on his resume, but not a lot of it because he hasn't played a lot. Sam Darnold's got a whole lot of bad tape on his resume, but he also has some impressive tape on his resume, namely the 6 games to close the 2022 season and that one throw to Braxton Berrios late in the 49ers Jets game in 2020. That was impressive from Sam Darnold. And Trey Lance, I think, has some impressive stuff on tape too. We've done entire film breakdowns. You can search for them right here on YouTube. Maybe we should pop those open again. But there were some highlights for him in that 2021 season. Hell, even in 2022, Trey Lance had that. I mean, the throw to Ray McLeod against the Bears in the monsoon was a really nice one on the deep out pattern. But he had, the 49ers run game was churning early in that Seattle game. When you have to defend Lance and some of the read option stuff, it's 11-on-11 football, right? You're making the defense account for the legs of the quarterback. 49ers averaged, Deebo Samuel had his Reggie Bush-like run early on with Lance still in the game against Seattle, but the 49ers were tearing him up on the ground. You could see what the vision is for Trey Lance, at least in as far as what Kyle Shanahan wants for his legs to upset opposing defensive balance. But it was cut short, and the moment that it was cut short, the 49ers had to move on because this football world moves quickly. They were lucky enough to have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. Then Garoppolo got hurt, moved to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy impressed so much, and he was still under contract beyond this year, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo. So at a really, really cheap cost. Purdy's not even counting against their cap right now due to the top 51 rule. But anyway, all this developed, the situation changed, and it wasn't week 2 or even week 1 of the 2022 season anymore. Now it goes Purdy, and then it's Lance and Darnold, and Purdy's hurt, so it's Purdy, Lance, and Darnold. And for a 49ers team that's in need of quarterbacks, that's not the worst thing in the world. Anyway, back to the, square one. We're talking about trading Trey Lance. That's all context that we need, right? This is all context that we need. We need to realize that the 49ers are in a position where they need to add quarterbacks and not subtract them. So any potential Lance move would have to involve adding another quarterback. And Lance is already a guy that they've worked with. Lance is a guy that I think they still believe in, but gosh, he's got to show it now. The deadline pressure is now because trade rumors come from the hot potato world. But the hot potato, the hot potato media world and the fan frenetic world only exists because on some level, NFL franchises have to play hot potato with their quarterbacks too. They're going to have more patience than the media or fans, but the reality of the importance of the position and the reality of the importance of, steady development, or at least signs of steady development, that all comes to play at some point. And for Trey Lance, it has come to play now. We're now in a spot where he's lost the scholarship and he's got to prove himself. Sam Darnold long ago lost the scholarship, right, with the Jets. They traded him to Carolina. He's got to prove himself with the 49ers. Then there's a chance that he does that. And Brock Purdy, well, he's got to prove he could come back from this elbow surgery. The 49ers are in a position right now, I think, that in one way is really enviable. They've got 3 quarterbacks making a total of $14.1 million in the cap in 2023, which is nothing. So in a way, they have 3 quarterbacks, all of whom might end up being starting caliber material. I think they all have that potential, right? 2 number 3 picks and Brock Purdy, who's already actually done it for, about half a season, right? And Sam Darnold did it last year for a 6-game stretch. He was really good. The 49ers have these 3 guys at a really affordable cost, at only $14 million total for this season. Even less if you're not counting the Trey Lance signing bonus money. So this year, salary-wise, the 49ers are not paying their quarterbacks hardly anything at all. So I don't think you could say that any of these 3 guys is on scholarship, right? There's no reason to give any of these 3 quarterbacks a job. Brock Purdy making $895,000. Trey Lance, you already paid him the signing bonus. That's a sunk cost. There's no reason to give him preferential treatment. And Sam Darnold, well, if anything, you're financially incentivized to not give him preferential treatment because most of his money is tied up in incentives that are not likely to be earned and based on play time. Sam Darnold is scheduled to make about $3.9 million in base salary and all that. He can make up to $11.9 million with a big incentive package. If that's through the $7 million incentive package, if he plays well and plays a lot and wins a lot of games. So if anything, the 49ers are not financially incentivized to have Sam Darnold win this, but I don't think they care. If they have to pay the incentives, they have to pay the incentives. The point is that neither of these 3 quarterbacks is going to be handed anything, nor should they be handed anything. So the burden of proof is on Trey Lance. The burden of proof is going to be on Sam Darnold, and the burden of proof, I think, is going to be on Brock Purdy too. He's just not healthy right now, and he deserves to be called a leader in the clubhouse because he's done more than Lance or Darnold. So you have a 3-headed monster of quarterbacks trying to prove themselves that will probably turn into a 4-way thing when you have a draftee or a rookie come in late April or early May. And to me, that's fascinating, and that is where the Trey Lance rumors reside. The trade rumors reside within that context. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in that context, which is why a trade is unlikely. But we do also have to add the final piece of the puzzle contextually, and that is the financial implication of a potential Trey Lance trade. So let's just, let's get this all on the record so people understand where the 49ers would be if they did decide to trade this guy. So you can understand how a rookie contract works, what dead money would mean for somebody like Trey Lance over the years. And you could see how this deal is architected. It's a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option. The 5th-year option isn't on there. The 49ers are going to have to decide on the 5th-year option for Trey Lance next May, not this May, but next May. So obviously it's a massive proving grounds offseason and year for Trey Lance. But let's look through it here. So he got a big signing bonus, right? The signing bonus was about $22.1 million. The signing bonus was prorated by season for cap purposes. The base, and that's already paid. You're not going to get that back if you're the 49ers. So this whole column, prorated bonus that I'm highlighting up here, it's a sunk cost. You don't worry about it if you're the 49ers. You only look at these base salaries, and they're really low. So you paid him $660K base in 2021, $825K last year, $940,000, the minimum for a third-year player for Trey Lance here in 2023. His cap hit, yes, it's $9.3 million, but this season you're only paying him the $940,000 plus the guaranteed roster bonus as a first-round pick. Everything's guaranteed for Trey Lance. That's $2.8 million. That adds up to $3.76 million, fully guaranteed. It's on the books. That's what Trey Lance is owed. The thing is that you've also deferred some of his prorated bonus cap hits. So if you were to trade Trey Lance today, you would lose money if you're the 49ers based on this spreadsheet. You would lose the signing bonus that hasn't hit the cap yet outweighs what he is owed, what another team would pick up through a trade. You'd lose $1.78 million because you haven't paid $11.08 million of the signing bonus on the salary cap yet, and that would all hit your cap at once. Anything you've already paid Trey Lance physically through the bank, you're going to have to pay against the cap. So way too much dead money to justify trading Trey Lance right now, since it would lose the 49ers money. That wouldn't be good. If you waited till after June 1st to trade him so you could defer the dead money to later, you'd incur a $5.5 million hit this year, $5.5 million next year, and you'd save $3.76 million this year. So it'd make a little bit more sense to trade Trey Lance with a post-June 1st designation or later on, but you'd still be paying a heavy price. What's much more likely here is if you look at the cost to trade Trey Lance next season in 2024, because you already paid 5.5 more million of the prorated bonus by that point. So the price tag becomes cheaper. It's like you've paid off more of the loan. So you're not selling as expensive of a loan here. It'd be 5.5 million of dead money, saving 5.3 million next year. So long story short, the 49ers can save $5.3 million by trading Trey Lance in 2024, but they would lose nearly $2 million by trading Trey Lance right now. For a team that only has like somewhere between $2 and $4 million of salary cap space right now, you can see on my spreadsheet how much they have. I can't remember off the top of my head. But for a team that has that plus another million or so in expenses coming to sign their draft class, and then potentially a more expensive 53-man roster than their offseason top 51 rule, every dollar counts. I mean, the 49ers are running all these veteran salary exceptions. They're running a 4-year qualifying player contract offer to Ross Dwelly to save $600,000 here, and then they're saving $25K a piece elsewhere. Every dollar matters. So if you were to go through with trading Trey Lance right now and you would lose $2 million because of it on the cap, that would punch the 49ers in the stomach. That's not a move that they've been financially setting themselves up to make. Though it's really important to understand all of that, and also understand that 2024 is the season where Trey Lance trade becomes a whole lot more palatable in that final season of his rookie deal. And that's why 2023, all eyes are on him. All eyes are on him. They're all on Sam Darnold. They're all on Brock Purdy. They're going to be on this quarterback room because it's going to be the proving grounds. And I think that that's the best the 49ers can make of this situation. You've got 3 talented quarterbacks that haven't fully proven themselves in their current situation. And Brock Purdy fans are going to get mad when I say that, but he's literally sitting there with a torn elbow right now, torn UCL. He's going to have to reprove himself coming back. The sample size is going to have to grow from what it was last year. Awesome year for Purdy, but obviously still a lot of unknown for him. And obviously Trey Lance and Sam Darnold haven't yet fully proven themselves either. So it's going to be it's going to be a three-way battle for the position in the fast lane for the 49ers. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. And no, I don't think the 49ers are going to trade Trey Lance because I think they want this three-way battle. I think they want him to prove himself. I think they want to give him that chance. I mean, you look at the contract. What's he making this year? $940,000. Do they still believe in Trey Lance's upside the way that they did when they traded up to number 3 to draft him? Even if they believe only in like 60 or 70% of that, and I think they believe a little bit more than that. I think the 49ers are still a solid 85, 90% of believing in the upside. It's just a question of will he mechanically get there. But even if they only believe in a little bit of that work toward that upside, then it's still worth it at a $940,000 price tag this season, especially when the price tag would be more expensive to jettison Trey Lance. So look at it that way. Look at it in the way of finances. Look at it in the way of a cost-benefit analysis. Right now, the 49ers need quarterbacks, and they're over the moon if they can get healthy competition amongst their 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks moving forward and yield the best possible results and improvement for Trey Lance because of that competition moving forward. Because financially, this is the only way that makes sense for the 49ers. Anyway, that's my spiel on the trade rumors. I think that everybody just wants to play quarterback hot potato, trade him, trade that. And, they don't really think of the dynamics and the factors involved. And those are the dynamics and the factors involved with Trey Lance right now. Now, let's answer some questions about this and ask them too, right here, 49ers Q&A. And we could add more context to it, but I felt I just needed to address that with a good 20-minute. It's not a rant. It's not a rant if I'm calm. Just a 20-minute kind of covering of the bases. So how's everybody doing? 49ers Q&A. I'll answer the ones about this Lance situation first. Don Nelson thinks that Sam Darnold is going to surprise everybody. Well, I don't think he would surprise Shanahan. That's the thing. Like, the 49ers saw those final 6 games last season, which were really impressive. Top 7 efficiency, top 3 accuracy from Sam Darnold if you look at the advanced metrics. And, I mean, he was setting up Yak. He was running a system that was similar to what the 49ers are going to ask him to run. It wouldn't surprise the 49ers. It might surprise outsiders who know Sam Darnold for the New York Jets seeing ghost days. But the 49ers only brought him in because they think he's going to capably compete for this starting job. I already addressed the Brandon Ayuk trade rumors, but he said the same would be true with a trade for Brandon Ayuk, which is why it will not happen. I think you're talking about the finances, Scott. Ayuk being a former first-round pick was a little bit pricier. Would also hurt the 49ers financially in the short term. Not as much as the Lance trade since he was slotted for more money. But yes, I mean, a lot of these trades, they seem to be irrational, pleasant fictions. Now, does that mean that a trade can never happen in the NFL? No, of course not. That's why Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch talk about trading each other, right? Oh, I'm going to trade John if I get a good enough offer, because you can always be blown away or moved off of a rigid position. But we need to speak in terms of likelihood and overarching plan. And right now, the 49ers need Ayuk to beat man coverage, and they need Trey Lance because they just need quarterbacks. And they're eager to see if he can prove himself this offseason. They really are. I sense a genuine excitement from the 49ers to see what comes of this 3-way quarterback situation, because option power is the way forward in that room. It has to be. It saved the season last year, and then they didn't quite have enough of it once it came to the NFC Championship game. Theoretically, would trading Trey mid-season have the same cap effect this season as if they traded him now with a post-June 1st designation? Yeah, so if they trade Trey Lance mid-season, it would be like a post-June 1st trade. So here's the difference right here. So let's change this to post-June 1st. They traded Trey Lance because it would be after June 1st. You'd basically not have to pay the prorated bonus for this season, 2023, this year. You'd split it. You'd pay half of it next year, so it'd push it forward. And then depending on when you traded him, you'd deduct that amount from his base salary. So, if he played half the season for the 49ers, half of this $940,000 would count against the 49ers cap. The roster, the way these rookie contracts are set up, unfortunately for the 49ers, if they ever thought about trading Trey Lance, is that the roster bonus is one lump sum that they pay out at the start of the season because he automatically makes the roster, and you can't divide that and have another team pay for it if they trade Lance. The only salary that is paid, every 2 weeks, that's paid just like a standard W-2 paycheck, is the base salary. And that's the only salary that's amortized for any of these purposes. That's the amount that would lessen if Trey Lance were traded halfway through or a third of the way through the season. And the 49ers would pick up however much he played for them. The thing is, it's the smallest chunk here. So for all intents and purposes, the money would look really similar regardless of when the trade happened after June 1st. Mike asks, is there any concern that Trey's mobility will take a hit coming back from the ankle injury? It's a good question, Mike. I think that Trey Lance's mobility did not prove to be anything that really threatened to consistently stretch the edges. He's athletic. He's mobile. He can run the 11-on-11 football that Kyle Shanahan needs to establish. He can do all that kind of stuff, but he's not Lamar Jackson. You wonder if the ankle injury is going to confine Lance to the pocket more. I think there is always a concern when somebody has a surgery, that has an injury that requires 2 surgeries. But since he wasn't a burner to begin with, since he was simply mobile and athletic, I think that, it isn't as much of a concern as it otherwise would be. But, we're going to see, because Trey also, when I say he's not a burner, he does rely on some shiftiness, some athleticism. And if that ankle's not planting the way the 49ers want it to plant, it's going to be something to keep an eye out for. But here, Trey Lance is very young, and that's a good thing when it comes to these injuries. I think that the body's going to bounce back, and it's going to bounce back better than the 30-something quarterback in this situation. Yep, Purdy's 10-yard split is about the same as Lamar Jackson's, which is wild. Brock Purdy has that burst that even Trey Lance doesn't have. Lance is faster over a longer, stretch where he can get those legs and those strides out in front of him. But Brock Purdy's got the twitch and the quickness that I think that Trey Lance probably is working on a little bit. And maybe we see post-injury Trey Lance have a little bit more twitch. Maybe that's something, you develop those type 2 muscle fibers. That's huge. Maybe that's something that Trey Lance is going to be able to put to the test. I actually thought that Trey Lance moving within the pocket wasn't all halfway bad in 2021 and early on in 2022. I thought that he had a fairly good pocket sense, and he did actually have a little bit of explosion off of his legs moving away from the pass rush. Maybe the most famous example was against the Seahawks, his second career action in 2021. He came in against the Lions on the first drive in the season opener and threw that touchdown pass to Trent Sherfield. But regardless, I think that Trey I think he's a QB who has shown that he could move in the in the requisite ways within the pocket. And within that context, he's going to have to get better at some of the other mechanical things. I think the mechanical issues that we talk about Trey Lance having come from consistency throwing the football, consistently putting it accurately where it needs to be, even on the shorter passes that set up yards after the catch. But everybody's going to rave about Brock Purdy and the 10-yard split. I think that Trey Lance can move just fine in the pocket, and we'll see if that perpetuates itself after the return from this ankle injury. The front office wants Trey to lead the team like Brock Purdy did, which is pocket passing, control the game, and mixing some running when needed. Absolutely. And, if you look at that archetype, Trey Lance has a higher ceiling than Brock Purdy because he has more speed over a longer stretch, right? The 40 time is better than Brock Purdy's. Trey was what, 4.5, 4.6? Brock Purdy 4.8, 4.9, I think closer to 4.9. That's a significant difference. So Purdy might be able to manipulate the pocket a little bit better with his, I want to say, almost supernatural burst. But Trey, he's got a lot of that pocket stuff down. Just go back and watch the tape. The pocket stuff isn't bad. It's the mechanics of the throwing that, if he can put that together, that could be the glue between the pocket mobility and his straight line speed, which I think can accentuate what John brought up down here. He can run the system the way that he did at North Dakota State, except for Kyle Shanahan, but he can add a bonus with his legs. Will the play calling be more pass and pocket oriented this time around than in the past for Trey? That depends on his skill set. That went back to Trey Lance last year. There was a lack of confidence in Trey Lance's mechanical aptitude, not in his mental aptitude, because I think the 49ers love how well he processes stuff, but mechanically, it's there's a wide looping release. There seem to be inconsistencies from throw to throw. Some of the footwork probably still needs to be worked on. There seem to be some inconsistencies mechanically for Trey Lance that, were leading the 49ers to be a little bit nervous, rightfully so, about where the ball is going to go. Is it going to be a little bit too high? Is it going to miss altogether? Is he going to be able to hit the gimmies? And if you can't hit the gimmies, it's going to stall drives. It's going to lose games. That's why you saw the 49ers rely very heavily on the run game when Trey Lance was in, even more heavily than they usually do. So the pocket-oriented approach that's not running read option all the time is largely dependent on how much progress Trey Lance makes in as far as the mechanical aspect of his game. Now, the problem when you talk to all quarterback coaches about this is that they say, well, yeah, I could train a guy to have good mechanics in practice, but then you enter a game situation and the actual battle starts, the adrenaline starts coursing through someone's veins, and oh boy, all of a sudden, those mechanics aren't perfect anymore. All that mechanical work goes out the window, and you revert back to old habits. So that's why a quarterback coach, many of them will tell you actually have to play to develop the rhythm. And that's where this is rough for Trey Lance. That's where he's going to have to just find a way to make it work this offseason, win a competition, and earn some playing time next year for the 49ers, because it really helped him as an inexperienced quarterback with inconsistent mechanics to be given the job in 2022. He's not going to be given the job anymore here in 2023. Now, 49ers have so many quarterback injuries, and Purdy obviously is hurt as we speak. And, don't know what's going to happen to Darnold once he steps behind that offensive line of that system. Maybe Trey Lance does back into a chance to play regardless next year, even if he doesn't win it this offseason. But you can't count on that. And the guarantee of Trey Lance playing that was there in 2022 is not going to be there anymore. So he's got to get better mechanically. Maybe he can only do it on the game field, which creates a whole other set of issues, right, for the 49ers. But if he gets better mechanically, Shanahan's going to trust him more to pass. I think it's as simple as that. He trusts the consistent mechanics of Brock Purdy, right? I think that he sees the mechanics of Sam Darnold and says, hey, I like that consistency. I'll be able to trust that within the context of the system. Trey Lance is going to have to get to that point too. I don't know how exactly it's going to come. But there's a reason why Trey Lance is no longer favored to be the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, because the odds would reflect how difficult this might be, how many thorns there might be in that whole process. Don thinks that Purdy is just a natural. If he's healthy, he'll win the job with no problem. Well, but what does healthy mean? Is the arm strength going to be there? I mean, he's coming off of a serious surgery, right? UCL surgery for a quarterback. I mean, he's trying to throw the football. So there are a lot of questions there. And a lot of people say that Sam Darnold's a natural as well. Hell, the 49ers thought that Trey Lance was a natural running the pro style North Dakota State, but they realized it would take him a while to develop at an NFL level, develop the polish that he never got in college. So they think all three of these players have natural abilities. Lo and behold, Purdy, played those 4 years at Iowa State. And I think when you call him a natural and you say there's polish, a lot of it came from that experience. Now, Sam Darnold played a lot at USC, but then he entered the league in a terrible situation with the New York Jets. Moved on to Carolina, wasn't a great situation either. Maybe this is going to be the best situation he's ever been in with the 49ers. So I wouldn't caution against naming a heavy favorite in this race. Let's just wait and see what happens. It's the tale of Sisyphus every year. That's the guy that pushes the stone up the hill and then it drops, right? And he has to go push it back up again. The 49ers, at least it entertains us while they're pushing it up, but then everybody gets really mad once they figure out they're going to have to do all that work all over again. But maybe this is This is the charm for the 49ers this next try. Yeah, Purdy started all 4 years in college, which was, I think, really, really instrumental toward, him having a leg up over Lance right now. He's so much more polished than Lance, and I think a lot of that is because of playing time. Mike says, smash that like button. I'm looking through some questions here. John asked a question here. Please explain after 5 years, 55 starts with 90 turnovers allows excuses from fans and media for Sam, but Trey, after only 4 starts, is labeled a bust. I can't speak for anybody else, but I haven't labeled Trey Lance a bust. I think that he needs more opportunities to play. But I'm also not going to look at Sam Darnold's situation and act like it's going to be the exact same thing in San Francisco that it was for a couple years with the Jets and then early on in Carolina. I could look at this with nuance and say Sam Darnold played by far his best football over the most recent 6 games that we've seen him. He was cooking in Carolina, and they're running a system similar to the 49ers, and he's got the skill set to succeed with the 49ers. Whether or not he will, I don't know. But, I mean, you'd have to look at it pretty damn robotically to think that Sam Darnold's really poor numbers with the Jets and Carolina are automatically going to translate into the situation with the 49ers, considering the fact that the last time we saw him on the field, he wasn't that same QB. He was playing much better, right? So the book is still open on Sam Darnold. The book is still open on Trey Lance. I can't explain why people think irrationally and say irrational things, which is what you're accusing them of saying. To me, the book is still open on both of these QBs. The book is still open on Brock Purdy, and that makes the 49ers quarterback job really, really intriguing. So here's your follow-up. So 6 games, Sam goes 4-2 is impressive. Yeah, it is impressive because it's the most recent 6. Players can grow. Players can figure stuff out. The Carolina Panthers ran a system that was very similar to what the 49ers run. They led the league in yards after the catch per attempt. The Panthers did. They're tied with the 49ers. So they're running the same timing-based type of system that Kyle Shanahan likes to write. They're running. Kyle Shanahan likes to run. Positionless skill position players, Laviska Shenault. I mean, I went through the tape for Sam Darnold, right? They're running that same sort of system, and Sam Darnold has great success in it. You pay attention to that kind of stuff. You absolutely do. It's a what have you done for me lately league. Sometimes it's irrational. Sometimes it's rational. In this case, I think it's absolutely rational to weigh Sam Darnold's most recent 6 games much more heavily than his rookie year with the New York Jets, a dysfunctional New York Jets team a few years ago. So, let's put it this way. Sam Darnold, just like Trey Lance is number 3 overall pick, Sam Darnold has done more impressive stuff in the NFL than Trey Lance has. I look at it more as a log of positives. I'm not taking negatives away from these guys. Sometimes you need time to develop. Sam Darnold is more accomplished than Trey Lance. Has Trey Lance had that opportunity to be? No, he hasn't. He got hurt. So he's going to get that opportunity this year. Nobody's saying he won't have that chance. But you can't take away what Sam Darnold accomplished last year. It was impressive. Just like you can't take away what Brock Purdy accomplished last year. It was impressive. Trey's the only one without a real list of accomplishments over several games in this league. So he's going to get his chance, though. That's this offseason. Is it going to be complicated? Yes. Has history showed us that the 49ers will probably run through a bunch of quarterbacks? Yes. Also, yes. So it's good to have a lot of these guys, and Trey Lance is about to enter the proving grounds moving forward into this year. This is the majority of NFL teams have Trey Lance over Darnold. I'm not so sure right now what NFL teams are thinking. I do know that Trey Lance is more of an unknown. That being said, look at Sam Darnold's contract with the 49ers. $4 million a year, right? 3.9. It's not great money, but the expandability to nearly $12 million a year is fascinating because it's more expandability through incentives than Baker Mayfield got. Then there's a couple quarterbacks that signed this offseason that were just a little bit underneath that number. Taylor Heineke was less too. So Sam Darnold is still, my point is that he's still viewed with higher potential upside based on that contract that he signed than a lot of these, second tier quarterbacks that signed around the league. I mean, this offseason, you had Jimmy Garoppolo signed for big money, right? Over $20 million per year. But then you had a lot of these, lower end deals where it was just like Sam Darnold's, just a few million a year. But you looked at the incentives and you said, hey, the 49ers must think of something of Sam Darnold if they're willing to give him that many incentives, because Darnold's not going to sign the contract unless he thinks there's a legitimate shot to get them. As far as comparing Trey Lance and Sam Darnold and desirability for other teams, such an apples and oranges argument right now. And it kind of lends credence to what I was saying originally. The 49ers just want to have all these guys. You want to have as many darts as you can in your hand so you can throw them up against the wall and see which one sticks. LB says, I believe part of the reason Kyle and John came out and said Purdy's a starter is to light a fire under Lance. It's very possible. And they didn't really say he's a starter. They said he's the leader in the clubhouse. They were truthful. Of course he's the leader in the clubhouse. He's put much more impressive tape on film than Trey Lance has. The discrepancy from a statistical point is almost comical right now. Now, I get it. Trey Lance doesn't have the opportunities under his belt yet. He doesn't have the resume yet, right? It's not built up nearly enough to be in a position where his resume was more impressive than Brock Purdy's. The at-bats aren't there for Trey Lance, but over a limited sample, and here is that limited sample. I'm trying to open up this statistical table. There we go. It's late Sunday night. Forgive me. Over that limited sample here, especially in 2022, right above me. I mean, Purdy was really damn good. Garoppolo's really damn good. Lance was awful last year over a small sample in a monsoon. I get it. Lance was a lot better in some regards in 2021 over a larger sample, but he was shaky in success rate, so he's inconsistent. It was a high ceiling, low floor, and we already knew that about Trey Lance. They've got to raise that floor before Kyle Shanahan is comfortable, A, playing Trey Lance, and B, calling pocket passing plays for Trey Lance. Yeah, well, Lance he wasn't an NFL level quarterback in college. It was about projection, though. 49ers took the swing, and other teams, I think the Falcons would have been willing to take the swing. Other teams took the swing because they knew he was smart. They knew he had the physical skill set, and they thought they could bridge the gap by developing him mechanically. He wasn't supposed to be an NFL level quarterback coming out of North Dakota State. That's where people mess this up. They think they picked him out of North Dakota State and they would start over Jimmy Garoppolo. No, Jimmy Garoppolo was way better early on. But the hope was that Trey Lance would develop and surpass somebody like Garoppolo because he had a more complete athletic skill set. So this is not the scale that we should be judging things on. We all knew that he was a work in progress coming out of college. Ken understands this. The way to bring out the best of any player is to have a competition and have a backup that pushes the starter to be the best version of himself. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Or you could have two backups to push the starter. Competition, iron sharpens iron. I think somebody else put that into the comment section. Yep, Frank did. Iron sharpens iron and marshmallows get toasted. We'll find out if Trey Lance is working that iron to sharpen some more iron this offseason. Harold thinks that Bill Walsh is the greatest of all time. Jerry Fernandez wants Jake Haener to come to the Niners. Jerry Fernandez must be from the 559. Hello to my home region. What was I all over during this time frame? Or what? Oh, are you talking about Garoppolo, Lance in 2021? Sadly, I was one of the few that was like, yes, they're going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. Of course they will. They're not going to pick somebody out of North Dakota. Yeah, it's so wild that people's positions change so much and then they act like they didn't say what they did before. But it's kind of the sign of the times, right? Everybody's banging the drum for Trey Lance to come in out of the FCS and start over Jimmy Garoppolo, who just earned $25 million a year from the Raiders. And now the 49ers should trade Trey Lance. It's like, what happened, guys? Why aren't you consistent with your position? Because nothing's changed with Trey Lance. He's just been stuck in quicksand here due to these injuries. So if you love Trey Lance enough for him to unseat Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021, maybe he should be the favorite to start over Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, or two guys making hardly nothing compared to what Jimmy Garoppolo was making. But anyway, yeah, it's people don't apply that kind of consistency to their thoughts. The truth is that Trey has always been a project. He remains a project, but the 49ers have less time for a project right now because it's further along in his contract, because Brock Purdy has showed up on the scene and Sam Darnold is now on the scene as well. They had more time for a project in 2022. Now they don't. And because they don't, well, this is true right here. The burden of proof is now on Trey Lance. It is as simple as that. All right, guys. Let's put in some good questions. Maybe we go 49 minutes. Maybe we go a little bit longer. Still looking at the question section here, though. The comment section, I guess I should say. What's Mike up to? Mike, text me if you have any thoughts. What else do I need to cover? It was a really good weekend. We were out in Kiowa, South Carolina, flew back to Nashville today. The 18th hole at Kiowa is where Phil Mickelson got absolutely mobbed in the PGA Championship a few years ago. I think it was him and Brooks Koepka. Remember all the fans, or the patrons, it's golf, the patrons were just hoarding. They were like ants hoarding Phil Mickelson because they don't have a grandstand there. It was crazy. So we went to this wedding, this beautiful wedding that was on the 18th hole of the Kiowa course. Here it is. So the wind was blowing and everything. And that back there, that's the 18th green. It was so cool. As somebody who watched that tournament a couple years ago, forgot which year it was. That's where you saw the swarming happen in the background. People give me a hard time because they're like, "You're not golfing. You're wearing a tux." So it's like, yeah, I was at a wedding. I there to wasn't there to golf. The golf happened before, but not during the wedding. Anyway, cool course. The Atlantic coast is different than the Pacific coast for sure, but both are windy. The wind is just a little bit more humid on the Atlantic side. But cool little lead up to the Masters, which is obviously going to be happening this week. A couple people at this wedding were actually headed to the Masters, which I heard is really cool down in Augusta. All right. Somebody said I look like James Bond. That's the best compliment I've ever gotten. Thanks. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and toss them in there. I'm just trying to pass some time right now. I'm tired. It's Sunday night. It's 11:20 p.m. here. I've been traveling all weekend. I've been traveling the last few months. Finally get to be in one place here for a few days. So, yeah, Mike says, hey, do you have any thoughts on what J.T. O'Sullivan said on the QB school? Wasn't that like a April Fool's spoof? That's what I wasn't sure about. He had some good points, but a lot of it I thought was a little bit spoofy, right? Where, JT and Kyle Shanahan he was playing Kyle Shanahan and he used, editing to put himself in. It was interviewing himself basically. And Kyle was dressed as Kyle. And I was watching that and he had some good thoughts, some interesting X's and O's, finger pointing, that there was some truth in it, but then obviously went a little bit overboard. And then I was like, yeah, well, this is an April Fool's spoof, but a lot of people are talking about it. So I think it's interesting. I think that Shanahan is very particular with his offense and with, the way that certain players have different responsibilities from the skill position perspective than they do in other systems. And because of this, maybe there are some blown assignments that you wouldn't see elsewhere, but there are also big plays generated elsewhere because the fact the offense is on the cutting edge. Higher risk, you know, higher reward. I think that's the way to look at the 49ers offense. All right, everybody. It's been fun. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Good Sunday night show. Hope everybody has a beautiful week coming up. We will be joining you tomorrow with a lot of 49ers news, some contractual stuff, and obviously the top 30 visits previewing the NFL draft. So like the video, sub to the channel. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye now.